Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 4, is it, of the semester? Sorry for the lateness of the video this time. Just school was canceled and I had to take care of my daughter and just didn't really have a private moment in the last 48 hours, but just wanted to touch base just very briefly about the work this week, which is a little bit of a shift in gears. We've gone from just sort of the basic kind of analytic elements of fiction broadly and are looking more specifically at the short story in particular. And we're starting with just the origins of the short story. And this is one of those moments in the course where the requirements of the course make it a little bit difficult to provide materials without the use of a textbook. So I am trying to compensate for that with a handful of materials that has been compiled by other professors who have taught this course. You'll find that in just one big document entitled Short Story Origins. And that article contains a number of links that will take you to various web sources that'll talk about just sort of the background of the genre, broadly speaking. We're talking about the short story in specific because it is kind of a, I don't know, recent iteration in terms of literature. As some of those links will discuss, literature, storytelling is as old as humanity. Every culture has its own tradition in terms of storytelling, and storytelling existed for thousands of years before humans had a written language. And so the transition over millennia from, myths and legends and epic poetry that is designed to tell stories, be entertaining, but also like convey history, to tell the story of where those people come from and why they do what they do in their own particular culture. From all of that down to poetry that sort of is that exists at a performative level, moving from that into putting on plays, reenactments, drama, and then slowly but surely moving from spoken word poetry to written poetry, written form poetry, the inception of long form novels, and then out of that the short story as a dominant or at least prominent genre of fiction. It's very, very new in that regard. Not that stories that are short are new, but the written published short story. And so a lot of those links are trying to kind of sort of speak to in a broken way perhaps, how we got from telling stories in our tribe to the short stories that get anthologized and spoken about in an English course such as this. So the work for this week is kind of built around Edgar Allan Poe's criticism of Nathaniel Hawthorne's Twice Told Tales. And the key element within that is what Edgar Allan Poe is essentially saying is that the short story is more powerful because it is more concrete and provides more depth and clarity than poetry does, while it also is short enough to keep the attention of an audience and get its message across more effectively because of that than a novel would be. He points out the fact that you can read a story anywhere between half an hour and maybe an hour or two, whereas and within that you can get kind of a fully digested take on what that story is quote unquote about. That's not literally all he says in that piece, but that is kind of his thesis statement. And so we're taking that idea and we're applying it to a couple of different pieces. We got a bunch of Aesop's fables. We got another Maupassant story. And there's a short film called Alma that is a different type of short storytelling, but it's still kind of a short form story. Short films get overlooked often for big movies, um, but it's still an interesting and kind of novel way of telling a story. So we're taking that broad concept of what is the origin of the short story. The origin of the short story sort of germinates from not only just the broad oral tradition, but it manifests in its current form specifically because of that kind of easy to digest format. And so we're taking that and we're applying it to a broad spectrum of literature from across generations. And so the goal of this week's discussion is essentially to talk about what you think. Does the short story, because of these unique properties, result in a more powerful form of storytelling, like Poe says, or something else? I'll leave that up for you to decide. So I will post a review for the upcoming exam that we'll take. The exam will cover the first 5 weeks of the course, so everything through next week's work. The exam will be up during week 6. The exam is not meant to stump anybody or to be particularly challenging. It's simply a kind of wholesale assessment of what you've gathered from the course thus far. So be on the lookout for that. I'll announce more about that next week. In the meantime, enjoy the stories. Enjoy Alma. I look forward to the discussion post, and I'll talk to you soon.